Do you actually have to be on cocaine to be on this podcast?
It's a great day to be a Wildcat.
Cocaine.
Durfing.
What is up, everybody? You are listening to yet another edition of Cocaine Willie, the official K-State representative on the College Huddle. I am your commissioner, Bob Trollsby, and as always, for this time, we've got the whole crew here. I'm joined by my co-host, the good chef Andre Napier, and Fireball Matt Marchesini. Before we get into this episode, which is going to be a loaded baked potato of an episode, we've got a shit ton of things to talk about related to K-State sports. But before we get into it, this beer crack. Does someone have a beer? Does anybody have a beer? I don't have a beer. You're on mute. Okay. All right. This beer crack is brought to you by Auntie May's Parlor, located at 616 North 12th Street in the heart of Aggieville in Manhattan, Kansas. Auntie May's, they've been serving it up for 51 years, going on 52 years now, running, which is wild. Very, very old bar in the best part of Aggieville. And they've got craft cocktails, draft beers, and everything in between. As we're recording this Tuesday, December 9th, I feel like we've been advertising this for weeks now. We've got Pie and Cocktails with Therapie happening tonight at Auntie May's Parlor. You are too late if you're listening to this, but you're not too late to sign up for the next one. Again, you can find all of their events that they have online on their website, auntiemays.com. You can look at their events tab. They've got everything listed there. We've got Trivia Smackdown on Wednesday, December 10th. We've got Nathan Page's Underground Guitar Pull on Thursday, December 11th. And Grandpa Schnazzy is at Auntie May's on Friday, December 12th. We got a packed week at Auntie May's this week. So if you are a student and you're participating in finals and you need a little reprieve, go to Auntie May's. Why not? They've got a ton of events. So check them out. Be sure to tell them Cocaine Willie sent you. Buy one of our Wildcat Country Let's Ride koozies, which are for sale there in the parlor. Just talk to your bartender, tip your bartenders, do all those things, and we'll see you down at Auntie May's. All right, guys, what's new? What's new? No news this past week. Nothing's happened.
Status quo.
What a great time to be a cat. You know, Chris Klieman is our head coach. He's still kicking it. We're about to go to a bowl game. What else could possibly have happened since we've been on?
Chef and I recorded a pod a week ago tonight, and none of this stuff. I guess there were some whispers. I wasn't on the boards last Tuesday, so I didn't see anything until Wednesday morning. And I start getting texts before I wake up from people being like, holy shit, it's happening. Klieman's stepping down and Klein is getting hired. And I was like, wait, there's no way this is corroborated. And then I go over to KSO and DY's confirming that it's happening. And then he has to walk it back a little bit and say, like, it's rumored, like Klein is the lean on who's going to be the next coach. And then Klieman still hasn't retired yet. And then we get the press con, and then the whole thing. Gene says he doesn't have his phone number, like a ridiculous past 7 days. But I guess before we get into it, Klieman steps down as our head coach after a 6-6 season. The team is opting out of a bowl game, which I don't know if that would have happened or not. Whatever. We don't have to get into that yet, but Klieman steps down. Has a pretty good track record, I would say, as the K-State head coach, multiple 7 and 8 win seasons. I believe this is a stat that had been shared by a number of people in the K-State media, especially D. Scott Fritchen, but there are like 5 programs or 8 programs that had been able to win as consistently as Coach Klieman had done at K-State. And then you get this season where it starts in Ireland, which feels like it was a year ago now. And the whole thing just spirals from there. You lose to Army, you almost lose to North Dakota, and you bounce back. You get a couple of wins, but ultimately it's kind of a lost season when you look at it at face value. You don't go to a bowl game and all that stuff, despite being bowl eligible. The team kind of opts out of that. So with, I guess, just a quick retrospective on the season and Klieman stepping down, thoughts from the two of you on the Klieman retirement situation and just the season at large that led to this.
I thought it was shocking, to be honest with you. I did not expect Klieman to be stepping down, and my first reaction was it because of the 6-6 season? Is it, is the program in a downward trajectory? And I couldn't think that it was that. Obviously, it was very personal for him when he made that his post retirement speech. He at the podium, he seemed very at peace with it. He said as much, and it made it feel like the program is not as bad as it is, and it's more on him. And I think that we're in a better spot because he took that immediate action. And I will remember the Klieman era in a very positive light. I mean, the Big 12 championship obviously is the capstone of that, and those were some of the most fun years of K-State football that I can remember. So he brought some of the most iconic players that I can remember in K-State history. So the Klieman era is a shining star in my book.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, you think about his first year in 2019, and a lot of uncertainty and whatnot. And you think of maybe one of the first signature wins he ever had was week 2, Mississippi State on the road. I was I can be completely honest when I say this, I was very unsure about the Chris Klieman hire in the December of 2018, enough to where, I really didn't feel that it was going to be the best for the program. And, week 2, he completely shut that up, going on the road to an SEC school and winning that game. He had a top 10 win against Oklahoma in 2019. The beginning of his era just kind of showed, I felt at the time, his ability to, number one, when the transfer portal really was kind of starting up, that was when he picked up some, that running back room in 2019 was a hodgepodge, if you will. James Gilbert, Jordan Brown from North Carolina, Harry Trotter, these guys, he didn't have running backs, when he picked up this team. And, I really feel like he got the best out of Skylar Thompson, towards the beginning of his tenure. And obviously Skylar was there, for 3 seasons. So I look at the Chris Klieman era very positively. Obviously the Big 12 championship win in 2022, he was 3 of 6 in bowl games. So the end of this, I think a lot of 2025 makes sense to me, especially towards the end of the year. I will be very interested to see how much of this gets out, how much of the ins and outs of what happened the past week gets out. When did the conversations actually start? It's very interesting to me. I don't know if we'll ever know. I really don't. But, was there a thought even before the KU game? You think about that embrace that Klieman and Gene had at the KU game. There's just some of these clips where you look at, some of the things that Klieman did kind of, after the game or this and that. And you wonder, has this been something that's really been in his mind for weeks? And, maybe some people have kind of picked up on a little bit of it, and now it comes full circle last Wednesday. I don't know, but I will say this. He was in probably the perfect guy to come in after Bill Snyder. He was a guy that took this program after year 1. He got him to a bowl in 2019. A team that, was kind of, not looking dim, but, that there wasn't a ton of success in 2018. And, he brought this team to a bowl game in 2019. He did a really good job on the recruiting side. Obviously Deuce Vaughn is a big one. You think about Felix Anudike-Uzomah, Obviously Will Howard. You have these guys that he brought in. He did a really good job from the recruiting perspective. And I truly believe that the landscape of college football has changed for coaches like Chris Klieman. It is a different game now. And it's not as much as the game anymore. It's what's happening off the field that I think is putting some coaches in a little bit of a lurch, because you don't know how to take care of some of these items. And having a coach, come in, we'll talk about Collin Klein here in a little bit, having a coach come in who really is seeing and kind of understanding some of the outside things that are the factor, I think is going to be really key for K-State football. But I'm very appreciative of Chris Klieman and what he has done for us.
Well, you said something very interesting there, like where you kind of the end of the season put with him retiring, put things into perspective. Like how long did that decision was it bubbling up? So it makes me wonder, because with the pod that me and Bob had done just this previous episode, we were like, what, 0-5 and 1-score games. If any of those flip, and let's say all of them flip, are we talking about Chris Klieman retiring? Does the landscape of football bother him so much when he has an 11-1 football team? I don't think it does. I think the 6-6 kind of has an impact on that. And maybe it spurred some things in the right direction to where, serendipitously, it just happened to happen where Collin Klein is right there in our laps and he's ready to go. So it is very weird, the coincidences, how they lined up. But the Klieman era it's cemented. It's cemented, and it helped this program in a way that I don't know where we'd be at if we didn't have a Chris Klieman. I don't know who could have shouldered the load of a post Bill Snyder other than him, because it damn sure wasn't Seth Luttrell.
No, and I was looking. I had a time hop from 7 years ago in 2018, December. This week we were having the same conversation, not on this pod because the pod didn't exist, but a tweet from Derek Young about the 3 finalists for Bill Snyder's successor, and it was Chris Klieman, Seth Luttrell, Neil Brown, and Mike Norvell. And you look at those coaches. I mean, Mike Norvell.
I think Neil Brown would have been fine, actually. I think Neil Brown could have done somewhat of a decent job.
Are you Climb truster, brother? You trust in the Climb?
Trust the Climb. Those other two, Seth Luttrell is in a totally different stratosphere. Like that would have never worked. Maybe Norvell. I mean, he had a strong season, but he is a portal hound. I don't know how well that would have worked at K-State, but who knows? But I think Klieman obviously was the best fit, and he fit like a glove.
I couldn't agree more. And you look at the track record, he wins a Big 12 championship. You go to a Sugar Bowl, granted, you lose it to Nick Saban with a team that decided not to opt out anybody, including Bryce Young and who was the linebacker?
Jahmyr Gibbs, Will Anderson.
Jahmyr Gibbs, Will Anderson. Just a stacked team when you think about it now. But you win the Pop-Tarts Bowl, Rate Bowl, Texas Bowl, obviously that Liberty Bowl. We don't have to talk about that Liberty Bowl. We could have had bookends in the Liberty Bowl and the Klieman era. If you think about it, that would have been fitting. But yeah, multiple 9-win, 10-win seasons, which that's about all you can ask for. I think he was the perfect guy to succeed Bill Snyder and kind of bridge that gap. I know he's an older school kind of coach to a degree. He's not as old school as a Bill Snyder, but not new school like a Collin Klein or like a I'm forgetting the name of the guy that Oklahoma State just hired from North Texas. Mike
Morris.
Eric Morris. So he's not that new school at the same time. I feel like he did a decent job of adapting. You already mentioned year one, Matt, where you bring in graduate transfers because that's all you could really do at that point. But then, I mean, Timmy Horn was one of those guys that he brought in that first year too. And he had a cup of coffee in the NFL. There's multiple guys that he's brought in through the years, through the portal. And, none better than, some of those first running backs that he brought in. And over the years, it's just interesting to see how the portal has developed. And I think this year there's obviously a lot of excitement about this team coming into the season. You definitely don't meet the expectations that you thought you were going to have coming into it, but I think he did his best to adapt as he could. Again, just outsider looking in here. I'm not insider with the program or anything. Just from what I could see, he did what he could, and I think he did a great job when you look back at his track record. But the future is now. Collin Klein has been hired to be the 36th head coach of K-State football. What were your thoughts on the hire and then the rollout and how everything occurred? Because you go into that press conference where Klieman retires, which I understand that they wanted to give him space and give that air for him to breathe and have that retirement ceremony, for lack of a better way to put it, get the whole coaching staff of all the other teams and stuff that were there to watch it and witness it, because he had an impact on other guys. Like Travis Geffert was even saying that he was instrumental in him coming in to be the track and field coach. But you come out of that, Gene saying he doesn't even have his phone number, but it seems like there very clearly been some at least back channel conversations going on between Klein's camp, agent, whatever, and Gene's camp or K-State athletics to some sort of a degree, because these things don't happen overnight. But at the same time, Klein was maybe 30 minutes away from accepting the job at USF and becoming a Bull. So what were your thoughts on the rollout, the hire itself, kind of those 48 to 72 hours between Wednesday morning and then Friday afternoon when he has his introductory press conference?
I mean, I'll start with the Wednesday press conference, and I was somewhat disappointed with the press conference, and I think a lot of it is on Gene Taylor. I did not like the kind of standoff about NIL that started his portion. I do probably get that. Yes, he was probably being sarcastic with the phone number and like this and that, but I really wanted that press conference to be 100% appreciative of Chris Klieman and not talking necessarily about a coaching search, not talking about NIL, but talk about Chris Klieman, talk about his, what he's brought to Kansas State, what he brought to the football program, your relationship with him for the many years, even prior to Kansas State, that you all had been together. They're genuine friends. And I was just a little turned off with the conversation about the NIL piece and the landscape of how college football changed and, these schools signing this agreement and all of this stuff. Like, talk about Chris Klieman. I mean, just make that be your theme. I was a little bit at the time, I was not impressed with how Gene kind of took the Collin Klein conversation, or at least the question that had been brought up. A simple, today is a day to celebrate Chris Klieman. We'll talk about a coaching search tomorrow. I feel like would have sufficed, instead of, just being a little bit of a clown with like, oh, I don't have his phone number. Like, come on, man. I think a lot of us who understand the college football landscape at this point know that you've probably indirectly had a conversation with Collin Klein, or you've had indirect conversations with potential coaching candidates. So just make the conversation about Chris Klieman. I mean, that was the thing that I think really kind of turned me off about that press conference, because I thought Chris did a really good job of just kind of, laying some emotions on his sleeve and, just giving, his kind of piece. But I was just really turned off by Gene in that moment. But probably some people disagree, but I wanted that moment to be about Chris Klieman and not about the landscape of college football, and not about, a coaching search that's going to start tomorrow. That was what I took from it.
Well, I think, to be fair to Gene, because obviously there's a lot of hate in your voice right now towards Gene Taylor, but I will say that he was asked about that. So it's not
Sure.
it's not like he just came out of nowhere. I mean, at the very beginning of the press conference, he was in tears talking about Chris Klieman the entire time. It's not like when he started taking questions, that's what the reporters wanted to talk about. So that's when he addressed that. I don't think he was And I will say, I agree with your point about him lamenting on about like the state of college football, but I think that was in context with him losing his really good buddy and his head coach, and that's in his view the reason why he lost Chris Klieman to retirement, because the state of college football. Mind you, I mean, you could not make excuses about it and just, work together and try to better your situation, because I'm assuming that's what you're going to do with Collin Klein. So I could get with you on that, but I don't think him being a little goofball, Bud Light drinking goofball about losing his phone number or whatever is really on Gene. I mean, they asked about him. So I thought the press conference with Gene Taylor about Chris Klieman was excellent, to be honest with you. I thought it was a lot of emotion. And that's what you're going to get when you hire like people that are really close to you, and you don't hire just some mercenary off the street that, is here for 4 years and goes off somewhere. These are really tight family things. And I thought we're going to talk about Collin Klein. I think this is more of like the end, the family dynamic is never going to go away with Kansas State, I think, because you're hiring, the tree is just growing. Like it's just out there, and it's not going anywhere. So the family atmosphere is still going to be there. And I think Gene made a good hire both ways. I think I've got some views on the Collin Klein hire that, might not be as popular, maybe in the same vein as Matt and his hate for Gene Taylor.
I do not hate Gene Taylor. We need to stop with that. God damn. I mean, I feel like it's a valid criticism of the situation. Like in the grand scheme of things, like, yeah, he didn't bring up Collin Klein, like, but that a journalist is going to ask the question, right? And I just felt the answer was a laughable answer. Like, just be honest.
Okay, if he's honest there, and let's say he's honest there, and it falls through, now he's in a shit ton of trouble.
I'm saying don't provide an answer. Just say, I want to, like, today is an opportunity where we can celebrate Chris Klieman.
Right.
We can talk about a coaching search tomorrow. Like, that's a simple answer that I feel like provides a genuine answer. Number one, of this is a press conference revolving around Chris Klieman and him retiring, an important member and piece of K-State football history. We can talk about a coaching search tomorrow, not, I don't have his phone number. Like, come on, man. Like, I thought it was a stupid answer. And we're probably just like, I'm probably just bagging on one part of it, but it's not. Like, I just felt, I just didn't like necessarily his portion of it. That does
PR 101. It's PR 101 that you want him to. Yeah.
Yes, and
I did go to K-State for public relations, so I can
concur. I did not. I took one journalism
concur with
class.
Matt's response.
I took one journalism class. Like, I don't hate Gene Taylor. Like, yeah, I may have some opinions about Gene Taylor, but I don't want Chef to be proclaiming that I want Gene Taylor fired.
I never said that. I never said that.
Yeah,
that's from your own brain.
Implication.
All right, we're reeling it back in here. My original question was about what did you think about those 72 hours between the press conference, the news starting to circulate that, okay, Collin Klein is closer to accepting. We've got like maybe not the flight tracker, but we know when his flight's going to land now. He gets announced officially Thursday evening. Right, and resounding positive response from K-State Nation on how he was announced, who was the choice. I think it was the obvious choice. I don't think there's anybody else that you would want to go out and go after to succeed Chris Klieman. The time was now. And I think Gene Taylor, I think Richard Linton, I think the entire athletic department, I think Chris Klieman, they all knew and understood Collin Klein's not going to be on the market for much longer. And if he is, we need to strike while the iron's hot. We need to strike while we have this window of opportunity to go get him. Otherwise, we're going to have to pay a buyout next year, whether that's for South Florida. It ended up not being Oklahoma State, but we have it on pretty good authority that he was a finalist for that position as well. he probably, I mean, who knows what he would have done next year at USF, but you see these G5 coaches get swooped up after a year now, like John Summerall and some of these other guys. So thoughts on, the announcement, the choice itself of Collin Klein, the press conference for Collin Klein on that Friday, and how he introduced himself as the now head coach of K-State after we all knew who he was as quarterback of K-State and offensive coordinator.
I think that 72-hour span, I think it was the fervor for who we wanted as a collective of fans and, just boosters, all of that, everybody, it was a resounding yes to Collin Klein. And I think the iron needed to be struck while it was hot in terms of getting them in the building. And it just so happened, like I said earlier, just happened to fall in place with him almost taking the Oklahoma State job, almost taking the USF job. It all worked out perfectly to get him in right when we needed him to. And then I don't think he could have really, and everybody has said this, that he's not the most flamboyant guy. He's very measured. He's very all this. He's not the greatest on the mic in terms of, rah-rah. But I think there wasn't really anything that he could have said that would have, turned anybody off. And from what we heard and what we saw, the buildup, one, the two, like just the little snippets that we got where he's still in College Station, he's got K-State gear on, he's, throwing up the CK and all that stuff. No, the Wildcat, it was all perfect. And there's nothing that he could have said wrong. And he actually knocked it out the park. I think the introductory press conference was perfect. I think other than, the audio issues from everybody else except for ESPN Plus, but ESPN Plus didn't want to show like half of it most of the time because it was cutting out. So I think everything was perfect. The 72-hour window that you're talking about, and really now it's all on what can he do on the field? And we could talk about that. I mean, obviously this is a long time before we even get to that point, but there's two trains of thought when you think of that. I mean, obviously he's one of our own. He's going to get some grace, but he's got to prove it. So it's a lot. It's a lot. And but I'm happy with the decision that was made, and I think it was the necessary one.
Well, I think for K-State fans, like the biggest like wild card in this is like the timing, because we've seen in like recent history where timing doesn't necessarily work out for coaches that you potentially would want. I think a lot of people obviously trend towards the Brad Underwood situation that occurred, in 2015, of trying to pull him after Bruce Weber was kind of struggling with the team. But the time frame between when they actually sent the announcement, I think it was just a lot of just like you're waiting on your hands, right? Like we have some really good insiders in the program, across the different entities. I know we speak about KSO a good amount, but a lot of people subscribe to a board like that, and when you hear it's happening, but you're not hearing anything, it's a little bit of that nervousness, right?
It's Patterson.
Yeah. And, it's kind of like trusting, you got to trust the sources that people are getting, because obviously as a casual fan, none of us have sources, right? Like we rely on other people to give us that information. So, when that came out, that was obviously a huge deal, but his press conference, I was not anticipating too much from it, and I got a lot out of it. Like I got a lot of really positive vibes out of it. I don't know if we're going to talk about like what we think next year is going to be. But this is going to be a program that's rebuilding in a lot of ways. You're going to probably be keeping a decent number of who you would determine to be maybe your star players, but there's a lot of people that you watched play K-State football this year that are not playing K-State football next year. And there's going to be a reason for that from a talent perspective and what the new coaching regime is going to think about the talent that's on this team right now. But there's going to be a lot of differences that you're going to see from this program that isn't necessarily going to mean that this team is going to go 9-3 under Collin Klein's first season. Like, I do think as a fan base, we may set up unfortunate expectations that Collin Klein is a savior and this program is going to have an incredible year next year. You know, you look at the schedule and like there's the potential, but I would have said that about this year's schedule for the most part too. So I think for everybody who may be listening to this, the key thing is we're just going to have to wait a good amount of time to really see what we think this team is going to be. Number one, the coaching staff and who he brings in. Number two is going to be who's transferring out. Who are guys that we think may, we think if Chris Klieman was here, he might have stayed. Well, he might be leaving now. There might be a pretty significant number of people that are leaving, but who's Collin Klein going to bring in? Like, what are we going to see from the transfer portal? I think this team is going to look pretty different for next year, and that could be a good thing, but there's going to be some growing pains too. So my expectations, whether do I want to set them extremely high for Collin Klein? And I think his long-term success at the program there's a high potential for that, but short-term, there's going to be some growing pains that people are going to have to understand. Like, it's going to be a tough road for a little bit.
I'm currently in the midst of teaching my 2-year-old what patience means. So we'll be like, what's patience means? And he says, I wait. And we're like, yes, that's what patience means. We need to reteach K-State fans about patience because we are used to these, 8-win, 9-win, 10-win seasons under Klieman. 4 of the last 5 seasons we've had 9 wins or more. 4 of the last 5 seasons we've had 8 wins or more. So we're going to have to be patient with this. If we want this hire to work out, we've got to give him a long leash. It's going to take time. He has the perfect vision, I think, for this program that he mentioned in his press conference of marrying being cutting edge and leading edge with the NIL and the transfer portal and marrying that with hard-nosed, tough K-State football, like what we all grew up watching, like the Josh Buells of the world. That he wants to bring that edge back to K-State, and based on what we saw this year, not something we were seeing in a lot of those games with K-State football this season. And it's a new era. It's a new world. He's going to have to change the way that we're doing things in a lot of regard, but he's going to be able to get the donor support and rally the troops in the fan base with the big money donors to bring in what he needs in order to attract the talent, in order to attract the coaching resources and everything that he needs necessary in order to get to that vision. But it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. So I would just urge K-State fans who are listening to this to have some degree of patience. Like, it doesn't mean we need to be okay with a 5-7 season next year, but we may be 7-5 next year. That's okay. That's okay.
Okay. And I'll say this, and I don't want to throw a wet blanket on this whole conversation about Collin Klein, because I think he's great. And there's the potential, like Matt said, the potential is there. And like Bob said, we need the leash to give him the room to grow into whatever he will become. But in my brain, I see this. There's one of two roads. I think he's either great. I don't think there's any middle road. I think he's great, or and I think there's a higher than 40% chance that he's Scott Frost.
I think that's fair.
And I not a lot of people want to hear that, but there is a better than, not chance that he is our Scott Frost. And, we get nothing done because he is our golden goose. He's the guy that we all clamored for, and we want to give him that leash, but it could set us back farther than we expected. But that is the risk that you have to take, because I think the upside is like you said, Bob, in his vision of what we are to this program, he's going to take us to places that we haven't been. And I think for a long time, no shots at Bill Snyder, no shots at, obviously, I can't say that about Bill Snyder. He did take us to places we never thought we'd go. Chris Klieman, no shots at him, but he kind of leveled us and raised the floor, but he didn't raise the ceiling all that much. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if like a lot of fans and a lot of us, even sitting on this podcast, we want more. We expect a lot from our program, and we want to see new things. And you have to take risks to do that. And maybe this guy is it, or maybe he's Scott Frost. You never know. So I think there's a better than 30% chance that he is Scott Frost.
I mean, I think there's also the potential, if we're like trying to compare coaches, he could be a Kenny Dillingham, right?
No,
year one, Kenny Dillingham went 2-3-9. He went 3-9. Like he's coming in and having to rebuild into a program that he wants to be a coach of. And that's building a culture. And that is, putting together a staff that believes in your vision and finding players that believe in that vision as well. And so I don't expect we're going to go 3-9 next year. I don't. I could see us going 5-7. I could do that. I could see that. But I think Scott Frost is an interesting comparison. It is one where you have a guy who, starts off slow, but then has some success, but then kind of, potentially he sees himself at Nebraska and then just completely, kind of tanks at Nebraska. This is, I think, how schools like us are going to hire moving forward. I think it's going to be younger coaches, first time, because I think programs feel, taking out that Collin Klein played for K-State, like history completely. You have a guy who won a conference championship as a coordinator with a Big 12 school, has in his second year college football playoff, like who knows what Texas A&M is going to do this year. He has a resume that would get him hired in some places. Obviously, South Florida was one of them. But, the K-State factor is going to give him a longer leash, but it's also going to give him some undue pressure, unfortunately for him. Like, I think that's
it's
my
similar
thought.
to Avery at quarterback. Avery's got more pressure at quarterback because he's the local kid.
Yeah.
He's the blue chip recruit.
No,
and so we put more pressure on him than we did on a guy like Will Howard. That's a totally fair point, Matt.
So I just think that for Collin, there's going to be some undue pressure as an alum, one of the most well-known K-State players to ever come out of this program, that you're not leading it. So for as much as he's going to get a longer leash, I think he's going to have this undue pressure that's going to come from the fan base early on, especially next year. You keep Avery, you have Lincoln Cure, who knows? Like, you're going to have like these top, what you would perceive in the program to be top level individual talents. But there's going to be a lot of guys, we have no idea what they're going to be able to bring to the table next year, because I think there's going to be a good amount of turnover. And so I think we all have to fairly set expectations for this team, knowing that maybe next year will be a struggle, but Collin Klein, if he's instilling what he believes are the values of his program, could be like a Kenny Dillingham for year two. Have this 10-2 year, win the Big 12, this and that we would all be like, absolutely. We wish that was us, to be in that situation.
I will say when I did, describe him as Scott Frost, and it wasn't necessarily him as a coach. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think the situations are similar. Scott Frost couldn't, he's had some success some places. He had a little bit of success at Nebraska, but I think a lot of it was his own doing, personal reasons, things like that. I don't think anything like that with Collin Klein. He's got no skeletons as far as I can tell. So it's mostly like you were describing, the pressure from the fan base, the pressure with the history of what he's already done at K-State. And he's wanted so much, and he's, got such a high approval rating just jumping in that maybe that pressure is there, but I think we would have gotten that pressure from anybody that we hired. If I'm being honest with myself, whether it was Collin Klein or anybody, following up, just like following up Bill Snyder, following up Chris Klieman, there is a level that he set that we come to expect. So the pressure was going to be there regardless. Now, whether it's increased, I don't know, but I think he does have a longer leash. And you guys are saying it perfect. Give him a little grace, let him do his magic, because I think there is going to be more of an overhaul than a lot of people expect.
Yeah, and Matt, you also bring up a good point. I do think a lot of programs like K-State are going to be hiring younger guys, hiring younger coaching staffs in general across the board, because you look at a guy who won 6 Super Bowls, get hired in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and you see how big of a disaster that is. It's not about how good of a coach you are in some regard anymore. It's about what you're able to do with the infrastructure around you in a lot of cases. And it's not like Bill Belichick is going to be able to navigate this NIL, whatever. He's 73 years old. So I think a lot of programs are going to go more in this route of younger guys who have more of a connection with the age group that you're going out and recruiting to be part of your program. So that's where we're at here. I see your private chat there, Chef. I don't know if my screen is blurring or not. Mine, it's not for me. It's not for me, but okay. All right. Ideal staff makeup. So when you look at what Klein's going to be putting together here, we've talked a little bit about the infrastructure around him being the nucleus of this whole thing. What are some names that you're watching for, some names that you would like to see? I've got some takes on this as well, in that I don't think it has to just be getting the band back together for all these K-State guys that have been in the program or been a part of the coaching staff. Like Stanton Weber, I can get on board with that, but I don't think we need to be bringing back Klanderman necessarily. I want to see who else is out there in the talent pool. It's nothing against Klanderman. He may be the best name available, but I would like to have a broader search, because I do feel like K-State has swung and missed on opportunities where Klieman would just go out and hire his buddies, right? He would go out and hire Matt Wells to be the offensive coordinator instead of going after, say, the guy that was at Liberty 2 years ago who had that Caden Salter offense cooking. I don't know what ended up happening to that guy, but he was one of the 2 names that was kind of talked about at the time. So I do think there have been opportunities for us to maybe hire some of those hotter names, or not just a buddy, right? Like that's been a huge indictment on Klieman over the course of the last 7 years that he was at K-State. So curious your thoughts on ideal staff makeup, some names that you're thinking about, your thoughts on the approach, who you would go after, that kind of thing.
Okay, let's do that then. Let's break this down. I think you have to start with, who do you want to bring back? Who do you want to retain? I think LePack has a role, but I don't necessarily think it's with offensive line. I don't know if he is the best offensive line coach. I mean, I didn't mind him with tight ends, but obviously he has a vision for himself where he wants to grow in the profession. And I don't think, if you try to bring back LePack, I don't think it's with offensive line. So is that a step back? And is that something that he would be okay with doing? I don't know. I think a guy like Coach Wyatt, I mean, he's older, but he does have a proven track record of getting the most out of his guys and finding gems and doing things like that I think is valuable. But then when you think about what Collin Klein is going to bring to as a head coach, Chris Klieman had a set of recruiting base in the Iowa area, Minnesota, North Dakota, up Nebraska, and things like that, where he had recruiting stomping grounds where he could, bring in his guys, because that they recruit from the same areas. They know the same areas very well. I don't know what Collin Klein recruiting background is. Where does he recruit the best from? Is he a Texas guy now? Is he still Colorado touched in? Is he going to recruit locally hard enough? I don't know. So that's where I would think of bringing in his staff. Who is somebody that he can lean on for recruiting that is still a sharp mind on the field. I think the new era of football is also somebody that can tap into the portal guys. I know a lot of it is money and all that stuff, and you know the reports are out there of him already solidifying his GM, but I think you still have to have somebody on the staff with a Taylor Bratt, because I think Taylor Bratt is obviously not going anywhere probably ever if it was up to him, and up to K-State. Really, I think he is K-State through and through. Somebody that can get on there and help Collin Klein, a first-time head coach, recruit and bring in the talent. So I don't know necessarily position groups. I mean, obviously the names are floating out there, and like you said, Bob, the names that are floating out there, you don't want to put the band back together, but a lot of those guys were in the band. So I don't know. It's I would like to hear what Matt has to say, because I'd piggyback probably on what Matt has to say for sure.
I mean, I think the overall theme should be you bring in the best guys that you think are going to make a difference with the program. If there are guys that are on staff right now that you feel like are going to do that, great. You brought up Brian LePack. For as much as I feel like the offensive line had its struggles this year, you do wonder how much George Fitzpatrick not playing kind of played a part of some of that, and not having him this year. You also put, fact of the matter is it was his first year as the offensive line coach. What does year 2 bring to that? I think he would be an important asset. You think about how well he worked with Klein in the 2022 season, as well as 2023, of, kind of working up in the booth and kind of having that kind of lay of the land of, what's going on the field. I think he would be a loss, unless you feel like you can bring somebody in that's better than him. I think out of everybody on the coaching staff, he would be the one guy that I think would be a really good one to retain. Brian Anderson's another one. In the grand scheme of things, you think about the running back situation at K-State. I feel like Brian Anderson's done a pretty good job, with that. I believe he's been with the program since Klieman started in 2019. You think about that 2019 season and the different guys that he, had to bring in and kind of get together. The hodgepodge. Obviously Deuce Vaughn and his development, DJ Giddens and how he developed. I feel Joe Jackson towards the end of the season, once, the scheme kind of was more pointed towards him, had a lot more success. He would be an interesting guy that I think Collin Klein could see the benefit of having, just the experience in the program. But I will say this, with some of the names that we're hearing, we've heard the GM name. That sounds like that's going to happen. We hear Stanton Weber from Toledo, who is considered, one of the top special teams coaches in the country. He's done a really good job at Toledo. We've heard some of these other names from Texas A&M. I am of the opinion that if you are bringing in guys from a program that has been in the top 10 this year and is going to the college football playoff and has worked with your head coach, I think there's a good opportunity to keep that rolling, especially with some of these guys who are going to be a little bit younger, a little bit less experienced. Yes, but sometimes that brings more hunger, that brings just more of an opportunity to prove themselves. And, we've heard some names of defensive coordinator like Jordan Peterson. The offensive coordinator position, I feel like we haven't heard too much about. That'll be a very interesting one. Number one, to see if Collin will be actually calling plays, but who might be targeted there. We've heard Josh Buford, who I believe in the past has had a pretty good relationship with Avery Johnson. I think that would be a pretty good, one to keep on the staff. He's someone that's worked with your starting quarterback. So the thing that boggles my mind, and maybe it shouldn't, is oh, let's bring in Tyler Lockett. Oh, what's Jordy Nelson up to? Let's bring in these K-State people who have no experience coaching whatsoever. Give me a break. Come on.
This isn't the K-State family Facebook page.
It just, it boggles my mind that people think, oh yeah, let's bring in past K-State people to come coach. Yeah, maybe they'll be good coaches. Who knows?
It's this. It's the same people who think that we should bring in Steve Henson at head coach after he totally failed as a head coach at UTSA.
Okay, but also there's the other side of the coin to a guy like Zach Hansen, who
that's different. Yes,
no, but I mean he's a former K-Stater that played. He was good buddies.
Agree.
But you got to find the fine line. You got to find. I think that's what you're saying.
Zach Hansen's a USC. Like he has coaching experience.
Exactly.
Oh, let's Darren Sproles. That's another name. Like where. Yes, they have been instrumental parts in K-State's football program in the past. But where's the coaching experience? And why do you want to make K-State the first stop for these people? Like, if they want to coach, there are plenty of other opportunities to grow your coaching ability than coming in with a Power 4 school. And yeah, here we go.
Look at what's happening. Look at what's happening in Boulder, Colorado. That's all I have to say about that. You've got guys like Warren Sapp coming in, being a first-time position coach, just because he's buddies with Coach Prime. And look what his offensive or defensive line looks like. It's not like it's out there being a world beater.
Deion brought in Brendan Marion, which I think would have been a very intriguing offensive coordinator pick, all things considered. Like that was actually a good move, but
yes,
his past assistant coach picks have not been great.
Right.
That's so it'll be interesting to see what it goes. But like again, Collin Klein is going to build his own vision and identity for K-State football. It is not necessarily going to be 2012 K-State football. And it shouldn't, because the game is completely different in 2026 than 2012 when Collin Klein was playing. But the fact of the matter is, in these days, you need to get the best people that you think are going to help you build a program. And it isn't necessarily people that have put on a K-State uniform in the past. It's going to be people who have experience coaching, who have experience understanding the ramifications of what college football is in 2025. And that is who I want Collin Klein to be hiring. I want Collin Klein hiring who he feels to be the best people for the job, not if they have a K-State connection in the past. So if we don't hire anybody from the 2025 K-State coaching staff, and Collin Klein believes is best for the program, then as a fan, that is what I believe is the best for the program.
Are you just telling me to roll over and accept it? Or is that what you're telling me? Just roll over?
We are dumb people. And that's the nicest thing I'm saying. We are providing our opinions about what we see. We are not involved in the ins and outs of what's going on. And
yes,
number one, people have to wait and give this time, because Collin is also doing two jobs at the same time, right? Like Texas A&M plays not next weekend, 2 weekends from now. They play 2 weekends from now.
They play the 19th, right?
19th.
Or the 20th.
In the college football playoff. So Collin has to deal with that. And then he's going to have to deal with hiring a coaching staff and doing all this other stuff. But yes, I'm putting blind trust in Collin Klein, but as we should be at the grand scheme of things, we should be. Like if he feels that Joe Klanderman or any of the Wells or Van Malone or this and that is not going to be a good fit for the K-State program starting in 2026, I have to believe that.
Any of the Wells.
Yeah.
Does Collin Klein call plays?
I'm going to say.
I think so.
Because I've never seen, obviously he's never called plays from the sideline, and there's no chance he Joe paws it and goes up to the booth to call plays as the head coach. So
I am going to say no.
I would agree with that as well. I think he hands the reins over as well.
I really do, because I think one of his biggest strengths is kind of seeing the field and making decisions by seeing the field. And yes, that's a little bit tougher on the sideline, but number one, I think it'll be obviously dependent on who he hires at offensive coordinator. But if he has an offensive coordinator with a similar vision to him, I truly believe he will consider letting the offensive coordinator that he hires call the plays. Collin is going to put his thoughts and what he wants the offense to look like when he's working with whoever he hires. But I really think that's one of Collin's like biggest keys and how he's been successful is he sees the field really well, and he sees the like what the momentum is like, and and you think about his play calls in certain game, like there are games in 2022 and 2023 where we're like, what's going on here? Like, why is this? But for the most part, he did a really good job of putting in plays for the right times, like to get us in situations. But I really think he sees the field really well. And when he was working with Brian LePack, I thought that was a really good combo that was working up there. So I would not be surprised if we see him ceding the play calling to an offensive coordinator that he hires and he trusts. I would not be surprised.
I just don't know who that is. I would love to know who that is, and we're bound to find out soon. I guess my last question on Collin Klein is, what do you think is a successful year one for Collin Klein? What would you deem as a success coming out of the next 12 games?
Let me look up the schedule real quick, unless somebody has it on tap.
Dude, the schedule. Here's the sad part. Here's the thing. The schedule is extremely attainable if you think about. You don't play Texas Tech.
Right.
You're not playing BYU.
Who knows if Texas Tech was good next year?
Well, I think there's an assumption that they're going to be good. They're not playing BYU. I believe they have.
We have Tulane again. We've got
Nichols,
Washington State.
Nichols, Washington State, Tulane, at Arizona, at Cincinnati, at Colorado, at Iowa State. Home versus Arizona.
Don't we have to reschedule the Washington State game or get a different non-conference opponent?
No.
Why?
I thought because they're not Power 4 anymore.
Well,
technically grandfathered in.
Technically, they're in the Pac-12 next year, but I don't believe we are rescheduling that game. So you said like away games: Arizona State at Cincinnati, at Colorado, at Iowa State, at TCU.
Mm-hmm.
Home games: Arizona, Houston, Oklahoma State, KU.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's some dubs on that schedule. Maybe Oklahoma State's better. I think they can't get any worse. Houston probably is going to have things rolling.
Houston will be, but then you have them at home, which is good.
Arizona, they're pretty tough this year.
You have them at home.
We'll have them at home, but it's also a new era at quarterback. No more Noah Fafita. That's been the presence there for so long. I think the home games are very obtainable. 5 away games in Big 12 play, not great. You don't like to see that, but I think the non-con, you have to get it done. Tulane losing Summerall, they're going to be in turmoil. Washington State they lost their coach. I think they lost their coordinator or something.
They did.
Yeah.
Their head coach is now the head coach at Iowa State. So we're going to see him still.
Hold on. What?
Yeah. Jimmy Rogers, who is.
Did you not realize Matt Campbell's at Penn State now?
No, I didn't know that, but I didn't know they hired
Jimmy Rogers from Washington State is at
Penn. And fucking Jamie Pollard is out here texting him good luck before every game, going back to his time at South Dakota State.
Arizona State rebuilding. They won't have Levitt. They won't have Jordan Tyson. Cincinnati, no Brennan Sorsby. Colorado, who knows? Iowa State potentially could be rebuilding if like Rocco Beck doesn't come back. TCU will be a tough game. TCU will be a tough game. So that's like.
But yes, it is obtainable. And to get to the point of the question at hand, what is success? And maybe it's not a record thing. Who knows what if record will really even be determining factor in success under Collin Klein in the first season. I mean, we all love to win, but I mean, at the crux of it is his message getting across? Is the fans if the fans are seeing it, then you know it's success. But if we're not seeing anything, if we're seeing the lack of discipline, very similar to what was happening this season, I could see, I don't think record will be that important. But with the schedule the way it is, I could see if we're talking just merely about the record, I think 6 wins is very attainable. I don't see any reason why you can't win the first 3 games. It's so funny because Nichols was calling Chris Kleiman's first
Yeah.
game as K-State head coach, and now it'd be Collin Klein's, which is very, very full circle. That's really cool. So yeah, I think you go 3-0, and then however they lay out the conference schedule, which will be important. I think that's one of my favorite episodes, is breaking down the schedule and seeing where it goes and how the thing's set up, because there's going to be some Friday games in there. It's going to get weird. So you got to find out if we can avoid those landmines, and maybe Collin Klein gets off hot and then it just never turns back.
I think you make a good point about the record. Maybe, does this team show fight in all the games? Maybe that's the key thing. Now, I mean, they did show fight in a lot of the games this year, but they just couldn't finish. So maybe it's how do they finish? I think 7-5, if you show a game improvement from this past season, I think that would be a really good, start from an improvement perspective. It is hard to tell because you don't know who's going to be on this team. If you roll back an offense with Avery, Joe Jackson, Jace Brown, Jaron Tibbs, and Oakley Cure, then it probably changes. And, but then you just don't know if the defense is how the defense is going to be.
Right. But we also said this at the beginning of this season, and it just so happens that, you're going to be rolling out a new offense. You're going to be rolling, more likely, if you don't bring Klanderman back, you're going to be rolling out a new defense. Everything is going to be new, and that's exactly what bit us this season. Obviously, the schedule was a little bit different, and, we don't know necessarily all of what the schedule is, but I know we won't be in goddamn Ireland to start the season off. So I guess it is a improvement, but all the new things, that takes time. The team needs to gel together. Things you don't like change, and that's exactly what happened with this past season. New things happened. We thought we put them under the rug, new defense, who cares, whatever. And it came back and bit us. Oh, we have a new training regime this season. We lost our strength coach. Man, talk about it. And I don't know if we could pull 7 wins out with a first-time head coach who might not even be calling plays, and that's his best thing about him. So I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know. If you get Coach True back, anything is possible.
Yes.
So the last topic related to football is the bowl game. So K-State did opt out of their bowl game. It was looking like it could have been Liberty Bowl, Independence Bowl, probably one of those 2 options. I heard Armed Forces, but did you really want to play in a Liberty Bowl game against Navy, again, as a bookend to Klieman's career? Had he not just walked out of the door of that press conference, never to see Manhattan ever again, because he went straight to Fargo, North Dakota. But Cats are fined $500,000. And just to clarify this, because I got a couple of questions about this from people, shout out to Nate Faflick. This is not coming from existing funds. This is basically a clawback on future conference payouts from revenue sharing amongst the Big 12 schools. So it's not something that you're having to cut a check to Big Daddy Yormark and say, hey, here's $500,000. It is more so, hey, we get X, $30-40 million a year from the Big 12. $500,000 of that is coming out of probably our next check for July 1st, whenever that gets paid out. So you get a fine for it. I guess reactions to this: Iowa State also opts out of their bowl game. Notre Dame opts out of their bowl game, which is a very different story than this. But I understand the reasoning behind this of, hey, you don't know if you're going to have a roster of more than 40 guys. You've got a bunch of injuries. You've got the transfer portal. You've got a coaching change. Let's just not do it this year. I understand that from a program perspective, but I also get that there's a lot of nostalgia for people with bowl games. I enjoy watching bowl games. I enjoy doing our bowl pick'em every year that we do. So I see both sides of it, really, and I'm not going to demonize the program one way or another for making this decision, but I'm curious y'all's reactions on this.
Well, It's been very interesting to see the kind of the volatility of both sides of the argument on this one. Originally when the rumor had come out, I was somewhat kind of thrilled about it because I look at it from just like the fan perspective, and I think about like the LSU game in 2021, and that's what a lot of people, or I feel like a good amount of people are looking at. Well, LSU played us with this and that. Like it was an enjoyable game for us. It would not be an enjoyable game as a fan of the team that, has half your team playing and, half your coaching staff there. Despite the fact that what you want the bowl to entail is like the practice and getting your guys reps. But your guys are getting reps with a program that's going to look completely different in a month. From an offensive perspective, defensive perspective, like everything's going to be different. So, what are you really practicing? You're practicing like you're going to the weight room and you're, doing this and that. Well, I would imagine these guys have the ability to go to the weight room right now if they wanted to, to be working out. So for me, I was fine with it. I do love watching us play in a bowl game every year. Like, obviously, it's a very fun part. Whether the outcome of the game is good or not, I've seen in person, typically is not. I would have not wanted to play a Navy team in the Liberty Bowl. I would have not wanted to play, a team in a conference, Kennesaw State or something like that, who has had a great year and, sees this as an opportunity to beat a Power 4 team. Like, I just don't know if I don't know if the program really had the wants to play in a game. And for me, it's not my opinion. Like, it shouldn't be my opinion. Like, if the guys feel like they can't put a team together that's going to be successful and, wearing K-State stuff and representing K-State, then all right.
Yeah. It's about the players and about the coaches. I mean, it's just every person that's involved with K-State. I think they have to look out for themselves individually. When things like this happen, it's a new era of football. Players, you want to get paid. You want the best opportunity. You kind of know who the head coach is going to be, but you got to be prepared for things that are coming down the line. So coaches, who would even coach the bowl game if we did play? So that's a thing. Cause like all these guys, I mean, maybe they show a little bit of fight if they can coach this team into a bowl game win or whatever. And they just, you show your abilities for coaching during the bowl game, but you've already had that, what's on tape. So you just get prepared individually for maybe making contact with people in the industry of where you could possibly land if you're not with K-State. So you've got to get all that in motion. And I don't blame them for, not participating in the Independence Bowl in Shreveport versus Louisiana Tech at home. Like, who the hell wants to play that game? I would like to watch it, but if we're going to get trounced and we don't have the amount of players that we need, and like Matt said, what are we practicing for? Because we're not going to be running this scheme next year. I mean, what's the point of it other than, fan service? And I think it's a lot of it has to do with the bowls too themselves. I mean, that's the state of college football that we're in. I mean, it's mostly playoff football driven. These bowls are, just advertising basically. That's all it is. It's an exhibition. So what can these bowls provide a team that, doesn't really have any incentive to go there? So maybe they start dealing out cash. I don't know.
I mean, it should be like Players Era for basketball, right? Like,
that's a perfect analogy.
I think bowl games, if you want guys to play and care and not opt out, you should provide NIL. Like,
go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, I think that's the next step. I think some bowl games may get left out of that situation by not being able to provide that. But like for K-State and Iowa State to opt out, and then obviously Notre Dame, is a huge name of opting out of a bowl game. Like we've seen for the past handful of years, we have players that opt out. So you're not playing a bowl game at full strength with the squad that you had that year for the most part, typically. But the next step has to be providing an NIL payout to the winner and the loser of the game. I mean, I just think that has to be the next step for some of these bowl games to succeed. You know, if the college football playoff isn't going to adjust, you know, if it goes to 16 teams, whatever, you're still leaving out a bunch of teams that would qualify for a bowl.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if you're ready for some tinfoil hat and not necessarily, you know, just my vision of what college football could be and what postseason could be. Now, get with me for a second. Not necessarily teams anymore. I think the team bowl system is dead. I think that is very, you know, whatever. I think we have players that want to make names for themselves that not necessarily are done with college football that can return next year for college football. I think we have things like multiple All-American fantasy draft football, very Pro Bowl-esque. You draft 3 players from Kansas State. You draft a couple players from Iowa State. And you build this collective of a Big 12 collective team, and then we put those teams on the field and we play that game. Now, I know it's going to be very Pro Bowl. Like, Pro Bowls from the early 2000s were fun. People were hitting. They were doing all those things. And if you pay these players, now you're getting more of a spectacle instead of a half-ass team that doesn't necessarily want to be out there. But if you have a team of 4 stars, let's say Avery Johnson gets drafted into this and he's throwing to another Big 12 receiver, but he's getting paid money to do it. I think that would bring more eyeballs to fans, and that would bring more, not necessarily more money to the team, but it would give us a reason to watch things in the postseason. Now, smite me down, but I think this might happen in the future.
I'm just trying to think of how the logistics works. So where three K-State players are getting selected to some all-star team to play.
So it's the Senior Bowl.
No, exactly. You put the Senior Bowl, but players that don't lose eligibility, that still have eligibility to play and will be back at K-State, hopefully, or whatever. But this is even more of a reason they wear that K-State helmet out there, but they still have time to put themselves into the transfer window. This is it's just an exciting time for individual players. It's a little crazy, but I still think I would tune in to see where Avery Johnson is playing on a selective all-star team. And you can have 4 or 5 of these games if you really want to get crazy. Call them whatever you want. Put whatever slapstick brand you want on the side of it. But if Avery Johnson's wearing
the Skyline Chili Bowl.
Yeah. Remember when we named bowls? That was fun. Why not do that with this? But it's just an all-star style. And Avery Johnson is wearing the Power Cat helmet out there, and he is selected to an all-star team. I think it would be fun. I think it would be good for our brand. I think it would be good for an individual's brand. And if he wants to transfer because he showed out and he put 303 touchdowns in an all-star game and somebody calls him from Bama that wants to have him, then that's good for him individually. But, I think it's worth it because I think that's where we're going, because the teams are just opting out and we're having to pay money. I don't know. That's where I think would be more fun and more more prosperous for the off season, instead of just having a 5-7 Rice team play another 5-7 team and expect me to watch that. I'm not going to.
I mean, I'm gonna laugh at this now. I do not think this is a great idea at all, but this is gonna happen in 3 years because this is something that Chef dreaming up, and it's just going to happen.
Oh my God.
Players era was effectively Chef's idea.
Oh my God, no, it wasn't.
If this happens, I want
the Dubai tournament was Chef's idea. Let's go play basketball in the Middle East and get guys. Let's get 8 teams and travel them out to the Middle East for a week. Play basketball in Dubai. and then come back.
A game in Dublin, Ireland, and football is going to screw up your season. Just think
Like,
about Dubai.
Let me tell you.
I'm telling you, I think the an all-American select team is something that can very much happen.
You know what? I appreciate your ideas.
Could you imagine if like the all Big 12 like you just put the all Big 12 teams, all the underclassmen. Well, because I think the seniors might be doing something, or if they have other obligations in the playoffs, whatever. You can opt out of it, whatever. But if you are an all Big 12 team, you put an all Big 12 team versus an all SEC team and have it as a game, or an all ACC team versus an all Big 10 team. Whatever you want to do, but I think it would be fun. I think it would build the brands of some of the schools, have interviews behind the scenes. I think there's a lot of stuff that can be done with this idea, and it just came out of my brain. Not just now. I've been thinking about this for a little bit.
All right.
What a beautiful brain you have. All right, that's going to do it for the football pod for this week. We had so much to talk about. There's so much more to talk about. So we're going to go ahead and drop for now. But before we get out of here, we want to give a shout out to Anti-Maze Parlor. Once again, check them out, antimaze.com. They've got a full list of their upcoming events on the website. And if you're stopping by, be sure to tell them Cocaine Willie sent you. Additionally, we are the K-State representative on the College Huddle, the largest community of fan-driven content in the nation. Check them out at thecollegehuddle.com or follow them on social media at College Huddle. And last but not least, you can follow our show at Cocaine Willie, or you can follow us individually. I'm at Bob Trollsby. Chef is at Chef Andre Napier, and Fireball Matt is at Matt Marchesini.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug, baby.
We are the greatest together in the history of the Big Ten. We are all coke and no joke. Wildcat country.
That's right.
Oh my God, these people that I have to do this with.